हिस्टोरियोग्राफी बेस रे केमती हेतला हमर डिफरेंट काइंड्स ऑफ हिस्ट्री ऊपर डिस्कशन करिवा तापर हमें इंपोर्टेंस ऑफ हिस्ट्री ऊपर डिस्कशन करिवा नेचर स्कोप एंड इंपोर्टेंस ओके तापर बेसिकली तमरे नेचर स्कोप एंड इंपोर्टेंस डेफिनेशन तो 100% इंपोर्टेंट 100 to 100% इंपोर्टेंट डेफिनेशन ऑफ हिस्ट्री किए कोन डिफाइन करते वेरी वेरी इंपोर्टेंट हैला तापर होची नेचर एंड स्कोप ऊपर तापर इंपोर्टेंस ऑफ हिस्ट्री ऊपर एतिकी तुम जे थोरली पढ़ी दबो पूरा 100-200 क्वेश्चन प्रिपरेशन करबो को हिस्टोरियोग्राफी रो जो 4-5टा क्वेश्चन आसी तमे डेफिनेटली अटेंड कर परिबो ओके तेणु प्रथम आम डिस्कशन करवा जे प्रीवियस क्लास रे मु जो डिस्कशन करथिली जे व्हाट इज हिस्ट्री एंड व्हाई वी स्टडी हिस्ट्री जस्ट वी हैव टू डिस्कस मु प्रथम इंग्लिश रे कोई डिस्कशन करी तार ओडिया में एलाबोरेट डिस्कशन करवा बुझला okay so far why we study history is very much important because history in my previous class I was also illustrating detail that is what is history and why we study history but if we discuss history history is the study of life in society in the past as I have already discussed in my previous class that in all aspects in relation to present development and future hopes because if we don't know the past then ultimately we can't prepare for ourselves to make the challenge in the present scenario so that's why the development or it is a story of man in time and why study history because history as you know you have already known that it is an inquiry into the past based on evidence. Okay? So indeed, evidence is the raw material of history teaching and learning. Without evidence, can we study history? Never. Historians can't write history without evidence. So the evidence is very much indispensable nowadays. So in this regard, evidence is the raw material of history, teaching and learning. It is an inquiry because we say we have to explain. It is an inquiry into what happened in the past and when it happened and how it happened. It is an inquiry into the inevitable changes in human affairs in the past and the ways these changes affect and influence or determine the patterns of life in the society. So far, the historian's responsibility to do the prolonged research. Okay, dear students, so without prolonged research, without collecting, without gathering the evidences or the facts, is it possible to write history? Never. No, we can't write history. Suppose I'm a historian, if I don't have the adequate facts and evidences, then can I write history? Never. Am I right or wrong, dear students? So, history is or should be an attempt of rethink the past. It is an attempt of rethink of the past because आमे खाली मने पकई दबा तापर भूली जीवा ता नुहे भूली गला माने you are not a perfect historian. You have to recapitulate or you have to rethink the past. The great historian Collingwood said in 1945, Collingwood, the great historian, particularly interested in the importance of history. What is the important study of history? Because history aims in helping or history aims at helping students to understand the present existing social, political, religious and economic condition of the people. You know better. Everybody should know that what is the aim of history. If somebody asks a question, what is the aim? Why study history? Because history, history aims at helping the students to understand the present and existing social, political, religious and economic condition of the people. If we don't study history, we can't get the information. We can't gather information. Gather the information. If you can't gather the information, then we can't get knowledge about the history. So far, with the knowledge of history, we can't have the background of a religion, customs, institutions, administration. ଆମେ ଜାଣିପାରିବା କି? Without knowledge of history, dear students, without knowledge of history, is it possible?
No, sir.
No.
No, sir.
Without the knowledge of history, we can't have the background of a religion, customs, institutions, administration, and so on. So the teaching of history helps the students to explain the present, to analyze it and trace its course. It means it helps you to explain the present, because many historians, even if that is the political thinkers, political science thinkers, or you may say the physics students, or anthropology students, or sociology students, history of anthropology, history of physics, history of political science. So every subject we can find history. In this regard, just I'm going to explain in briefly that history is the analysis and interpretation of the human past, enabling us to study continuity and changes that are taking place over time. It is an act of both investigation and imagination. ऐतिहासिक माने कौन करती ना इन्वेस्टिगेशन करी कोटी को जिनस रही कोटा एक्यूरेट हिस्ट्री कोटा एक्यूरेट इन्फॉर्मेशन कोटा एक्यूरेट एविडेंस से हिसाब रे समाने हिस्ट्री लिखिबे. So without investigation, without an inquiry, it can possible to write history. So far the matter is concerned, it is an both investigation and imagination that seeks to explain how people have changes, or how the people have changed over time. And historians use all forms of evidence to examine, interpret, revisit, and reinterpret the past. Understood my point? ऐतिहासिक माने सबु बेले फैक्ट एविडेंस ऊपर डिपेंड करंती एवं तांको परीक्षा कर एग्जामिन करंती इंटरप्रेट करिवे समाने बारंबार रिविजिट करिवे से प्लेस को बाय रिविजिट माने बारंबार से जिंस को पढ़िए बारंबार रिविजिट करिवे ऑन दैट पर्टिकुलर प्लेस ताको इंटरप्रेट करिवे जे एक्चुअली करेक्ट और इनकरेक्ट. So far the historians use all forms of evidence to examine, interpret, revisit and reinterpret the past. So in this way, these include not just written document, but as your students you know better, that the historians are not only collecting the evidences or written documents, but also oral communication and objects. बुझिपारलो विकास बाबू, all the students?
Yes, sir.
ऐतिहासिक माने को रिटन डॉक्यूमेंट आमे कहूची रिटन डॉक्यूमेंट आमे कलेक्शन करिवा.
Yes, sir.
रिटन डॉक्यूमेंट कलेक्शन कला पर आमे इतिहास लिखुची विभिन्न प्रकार बही पढुचे मैगजीन पढुचे विभिन्न प्रकार पुरातन आर्काइव्स जाउचे एवं आमे जाउचे कोठी के ना म्यूजियम जाउचे विभिन्न प्रकार जाउचे पुराना बही पढुचे एवं सेतुर जहा आमे जिस्ट पाउचे ताको हम इतिहास भाबरे लिखुचे. से कहते सेटा इतिहास ऐतिहासिक माने केवल documents, relevant documents collection करके इतिहास लिखंती ता नुए, does not mean, or it means, these include not only just the written documents, but also oral communication and objects such as buildings. The objects, the historians should find out an objects. What are they? Building, photographs, painting, art and architecture. Okay, they are also visiting on that particular place. Then after visiting on that particular place, then they can write history after doing such a prolonged research. That is the most important methodology. Or the historians are trained in the methods of discovering and evaluating these sources and challenging the tax of making historical sense of sense out of them. It means history is a means to understand the past and the present. As you know, if somebody asks a question, the sources of history, the literary sources, the archaeological sources, and the foreign accounts. ତମମାନେ ସବୁ ଜାଣିଥିବ, everybody knows. When the historians are collecting the facts and evidences, they have to follow three important sources. That is archaeological sources, literary sources, then the foreign accounts. Okay? ତମେ ସମସ୍ତେ ଜାଣିଥିବ, everybody knows that how the different interpretations of the past allows us to see the present differently and therefore imagine and work towards different futures. So it is often that sometimes we say that history is the queen. ଅନେକ ଐତିହାସିକ ମାନେ କହୁଛନ୍ତି, many historians are giving opinion that history is just like often said to be the queen or the mother of the social sciences. ଆମେ ଇତିହାସକୁ କହୁଛେ କ'ଣ, ଯେତେ ସବୁ ସାମାଜିକ ବିଜ୍ଞାନ ସବୁ ରହିଛି ତାର ମାତା କିଏ, mother କିଏ, history. Okay, so many historians are saying that history is often said that it's queen or the mother of the social sciences. So it is the basis of all the subjects of study which all fall under the category of humanities and social sciences. History falls under the categories of humanities and social sciences. And history means that is multidisciplinary approach. We can say history is called the multidisciplinary approach. You can find history in every subject. That's why history is very much important nowadays, not only today, because many scientists, many researchers, maybe political science researcher, maybe the physics subject, physics or physical science or physics researchers, or chemistry, or biology, or any other things, or anthropology. They're all doing research. When I ask the question to the researchers, you are also commenting, we are also criticizing that history is not important nowadays. Yes, history is very much important because we should illustrate, we should elucidate clearly that if you belong to physics, if you belong to chemistry, if you belong to any other subjects, they have to imitate the history of physics, the history of chemistry, of every subject has a history. So without imitate, you can't write, you can't do research in a very, very systematic manner or in a very, very persuasively manner. ପିଲାମାନେ ବୁଝିପାରୁଛ ନା? ଓଡ଼ିଆରେ ପୁରା କ୍ଲିୟରଲି କହିବି, ମୁଁ ତ simple English କହୁଛି. Can you understand what I'm telling, what I'm explaining?
Yes, sir.
Any problem?
Yes, sir. No, sir. No, sir.
Okay. Then, in my previous discussion, that is most important part, Mr. Henry Johnson, according to Henry Johnson, B.S. Smith, Rapson, NCRT, or Jawaharlal Nehru. According to them, what is history? Again, Rapson I have already pointed out and discussed. What is history according to Rapson, the great historian? He said, history is a connected account of the course of events or progress of ideas. Very important definition. Rapson. R-A-P-S-O-N. Rapson, the great historian.
Sir, please repeat again.
The great historian Rapson, R-A-P-S-O-N. Rapson -dava. History is a connected account of the course. History is a connected account History is a connected account of the course of events History is a connected account of the course of events or progress of ideas or progress of ideas. तापर एनसीईआरटी कौन कहले नेशनल काउंसिल ऑफ एजुकेशन रिसर्च एंड ट्रेनिंग तांको मतर इतिहास कौन व्हाट इज हिस्ट्री अकॉर्डिंग टू एनसीईआरटी नेशनल काउंसिल ऑफ एजुकेशन रिसर्च एंड ट्रेनिंग एनसीईआरटी हिस्ट्री इज द स्टडी हिस्ट्री is the scientific study of past happenings. History is the scientific study of past happenings in all their aspects, comma, in the light of a social group, in the light of present happenings. Again I'm repeating, according to NCERT hyphen, history is the scientific study of past happenings. History is the scientific study of past happenings in all their aspects. In all their aspects, comma, in the life of a social group. In the life of a social group, comma, in the light of present happenings, in the light, LIGST, in the light of present happenings,
The light
of present happenings.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so then our former Prime Minister let Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, as you know, if you study the life, the biography, or you may say the history of Jawaharlal Nehru, the life history of Jawaharlal Nehru, and the Honorable Prime Minister, the former Prime Minister of India, he said that history is the story of man's struggle. He said, history is the story of man's struggle through the ages. Okay? History is the story of man's struggle through the ages. Who has pointed out this definition? Jawaharlal Nehru, the former Prime Minister. History is the story of man's struggle through the ages. And in this regard, he wanted to explain that history as a significant record of events of the past, a meaningful story of mankind depicting the details of what happened to man and why it happened, mainly it deals with in the human world. तम से कौन कहे पे चाहिए? What is the opinion of Jawaharlal Nehru? Again, I am repeating a very important definition about history. So, history is the story of man's struggle through the ages. Simple. You have to write the one sentence. History is the story of man's struggle through the ages. It means to explain that history has a significant record of events of the past, a meaningful story of mankind depicting the details of what happened to man, why it happened, and mainly it deals with human world. कौन घटिथिला आ कौन घटी जाइछि, why it काहे क्या घटिथिला, कौन घटिथिला आ काहे की घटिथिला छु जिंस ताको विस्तृत भाବରେ वर्णना करिवा पाई, विस्तृत भाବରେ हम जानिबा पाई हम इतिहास पढुचे बा पृथ्वी रे मनीष जाति रो किबळी भाବରେ अद्भुत होला बा किबळी भाବରେ इवोल्यूशन ऑफ ह्यूमन बीइंग होइबो, इवोल्यूशन ऑफ ह्यूमन काइंड तापर हम जानिया पाई हमें पढुचे इतिहास. ଏବଂ କ'ଣ ପାଇଁ ଘଟିଥିଲା ଆଉ କ'ଣ ପାଇଁ କ'ଣ ଘଟିଥିଲା ଆଉ କାହିଁକି ଘଟିଥିଲା ଏ ଦୁଇଟା ବେସ୍କୁ ନେଇକି ସେ ଡିଫାଇନ୍ କରିଛନ୍ତି ଯେ history is a significant record of events in the past meaningfully. He wanted to explain that what happened to man and why it happened, okay, and mainly it deals with the human world. Bujipallo? This is the concept. This is the concept note of history. And very important thing I am going to discuss, that the nature of history. Please, dear students, listen carefully. I have illustrated in detail the concept of history. After that, I want to elucidate in detail the nature of history. What is the nature of history? Let's see. What is nature? Let's see, we have to discuss. The earlier history was considered only the record of the past events. Bujipallo? The earlier history was considered only the record of the past events. But at the present, it is studied with critical approach and scientific manner. Because of Bujipallo, all the students, if we discuss about the nature of history, if we discuss the nature of history, then we find only in the earlier, history was considered only the record of the past events. But at present, it is studied with critical approach and scientific manner. Okay? Because we have to do the research in a very, very systematic manner, because without scientific approach, we never feel, we never say it is truth. The truth comes when you involve, when you indulge in a scientific research work. So the critical approach and scientific manner is very much important nowadays. So the historian is required to study the events objectively, and the main job is to know the past and evaluate the events. आमे अतीत को जानिबा, ठीक अछि, हम अतीत को जानुचे, किंतु अतीत केते दूर है ठीक ताकू जदि हम साइंटिफिक अप्रोच रे इन्वेस्टिगेशन बाय जदि साइंटिफिक अप्रोच रे जदि हम तो रिसर्च न करिबा, इवैल्यूएट न करिबा, तामे हमें ट्रुथ सत्यता आसीबो नाही बोली मत प्रकाश होइताय. बुझेला डियर स्टूडेंट्स? So the main job is to know the past and to evaluate the events. His view explains the significance of the past events and happenings. So the historian is not only required to express his thoughts, but also to present them in a proper manner. हमें खाली पूर्व विषय जानुचे, किंतु ताकू प्रॉपर वे रे इवैल्यूएट करी सत्यता को आनिबा होची ऐतिहासिक मानकर कार्य. मेन काम होची तांकर जे सत्यता को उपस्थापन करिबा. केमिति तम सत्यता को उपस्थापन करिवो? तम खाली पास्ट जानछो, पास्ट ठीक ना भूल, ताकू तमे इवैल्यूएट करी. You have to evaluate. You have to involve in scientific approach. You have to involve in prolonged research. Do the prolonged research. Indulge with the prolonged research. Then ultimately the truth comes out. Okay? Bujipalo pile? Could understand? The truth comes out when we involve or indulge in particular scientific research. Previous discussion करतिली scientific approach by whom? Who had given emphasis on the scientific approach in history? Scientific approach. के कहिथिले? Anybody?
Herodotus.
In a scientific approach, in scientific manner.
Herodotus.
Thucydides. Scientific approach that is Thucydides. This way, it is expected. Yes, it is expected that he may gather the facts. I mean, ऐतिहासिक माने कौन करते? Fact by evidence को हमें Gather to ekati kariba. Ekati kala pare kon kariba? What is the role of the historian? It is expected that he may gather the facts, then evaluate them in proper way. Evaluate them and also express in presentable manner. বুঝিপারলো? The historians responsible how to gather the facts and evaluate them and also express in presentable manner. That is the most important objective of the historian. An historian is not only allowed to mix the personal ideas in the historical facts. In fact, while writing history, or when we are writing history, then cannot be impartial. His works are influenced by the biasness. Historians should not be involved in biasness or in biases. যদি কিଏ କ'ଣ କହିଦେଲା, ଯଦି ଐତିହାସିକତାକୁ ବିଶ୍ୱାସ କରିଯିବେ, ତାହା ଇତିହାସ ପରଫେକ୍ଟ ନୁହେଁ ବୋଲି ଐତିହାସିକ ମାନେ କୁହନ୍ତି। ଯେ ବାୟସନେସ୍ କିଏ ଗୋଟେ ରିୟୁମର କରିବ, କିଏ ଗୋଟେ କ'ଣ କହିଦେବ ଯେ ଏଇଟା ଠିକ, ତମେ ମାନିଯିବ, ନେଭର। So the biases influence the historian because he is to view the past happening in the background of the social, religious, philosophical, economic surroundings. He studied the past in the light of the present, but the development of present is affect the past. Therefore, historian is required to be free from the biasness and explain the events clearly. বুঝিপারলো? Dear students, no biasness. ଆମେ ତାକୁ clearly explain କରିବା historian ର କାମ ହେଉଛି clearly facts and evidence କୁ ଲୋକଲୋଚନକୁ ଆଣିବା ଏବଂ ତାକୁ clearly ଆମେ define କରିବା. So the historians gather the facts from other fields and interpret them. Professor Kar, ତମେ ଜାଣିଛ ତମେ E.H. Kar କ'ଣ କହିଥିଲେ historian? According to Professor E.H. Kar, what is the definition of history? What is the meaning of history according to E.H. Kar? କ'ଣ କହିଥିଲେ?
History is an unending between present and past.
Yes, unending dialogue with present past. Yeah. Yes. Then another important point I want to discuss that E.H. Kar also writes, the historians distills means purify. Okay? The historians distills from the experience of the past or from so much of the experience of the past as is accessible to him. And the past which he recognizes as amenable. Amenable means what? Responsive to a suggestion. মতামত দেওয়া. He recognizes as amenable to rational explanation and interpretation. From it draws its conclusions which may serve as a guide to action. ତା ମାନେ interpretation, from it draws its conclusion which may serve as a guide to action. It means, first of all, the historian should recognize that responsive to a suggestion, give the suggestion, whether it is correct, incorrect, or rational explanation or interpretation of historical judgment is very much important in historical, and we have to exercise the best ideas, the best knowledge, how to interpret the history, how the truth comes out. And the nature, if we discuss about the nature of historical facts, we can find several aspects which influence the nature of historical facts in their own way. So very important thing, you please, dear students, you may write very important point. Different perspectives of nature in history. First important perspective, history repeats itself. Understood my point? Some historians are saying, some historians are giving, suggestions, giving informations that history repeats itself. Is it correct or incorrect? ତମ ମାନଙ୍କ ମତରେ
See,
କଣ?
it is
What is
correct.
your opinion? Yes, yes.
In maximum cases, we see that the repetition of history, not in all cases.
Yes. Now, okay. Thank you. What is your name? What is your
Tarasan,
name?
sir. Tarasan.
Okay, very nice. Thank you. So history, all cases, right? Your answer is correct. There are some historians who believe that history repeats itself. Not all historians. Some historians believe that history repeats itself from time to time. That is the most important nature of history. ତମେ ଭାବିବ ଯେ nature କହିଲେ ଆମେ କ'ଣ ବୁଝା? What is the meaning? What is nature of history? Nature of history means the opinion of the different historians, and nature of history means that how the historians believe the ideas and they argue the human mind is alive all over the world and the forces that influence the events, and also like in this way the events are correlated to one another and they always react in a particular manner because they have basic unity. On the other hand, truth always wins and one cannot deny. सत्य सबुबेले जय लाभ करिଥାଏ. सत्यर सबुबेले विजय होइଥାଏ. ना नहीं? ताकू केबे हमें डिनाय करि परिबा नाही. Never. So in the other hand, truth always wins. One cannot deny it. ଯେତେବେଳେ ପଢିବା ଆମେ କେତେବେଳେ ନା ତ ଫାର୍ଷ୍ଟ ୱାର୍ଲ୍ଡ ୱାର ବିଷୟରେ ପଢିବା. When we discuss about the first world war, when we discuss about the second world war, are two good examples in this view of point. An aggressive policy of Napoleon Bonaparte, just remember, the aggressive policy of Napoleon Bonaparte or Hitler were not lasting and it had to be brought down. Similarly, the Kalinga War of ancient Indian history shows that the might cannot become right. Am I right? The historians are saying. Okay? The historians are saying that in the Kalinga War of ancient Indian history shows that might cannot be become right or can never become right. All these points out that history always repeats itself. ताले रिपीट जेते इतिहास को हम केतले रिपीट करिवा जेतले हम तमु पचारिबे कलिंग वार विषय जेतले मु तमु पचारि क्वेश्चन नेपोलियन बोनापार्ट को ऊपर नेपोलियन बोनापार्ट जेतले पढिबो कॉन्टिनेंटल सिस्टम त तम पढिबो नेपोलियन बोनापार्ट जेतले पढिबो केमति से इटाली अभियान करथिले लिसर अभियान बा जे केम विभिन्न प्रकार देश को बा अभियान करिके केमति निजर कोन साम्राज्य विस्तार करथिले बा निजर पावरफुल बा पावर बा पर्सनालिटी निजको प्रदर्शित करथिले वर्ल्ड वाइड तामे ए जिंसटा कोन होची दैट इज रिपीट हिस्ट्री repeats itself. No, okay. We have to agree this opinion. Sometimes, in the First World War, in the Second World War, Napoleon Bonaparte or the Kalinga War, but sometimes what is happening, some historians are saying, जे कलिंग वार वर्तमान ऐतिहासिक माने कहउचंती जे अशोक कोन पय आसीतिले कलिंग वार से कहउतिले कारीबाकी पय आसीतिले किनु अनेक ऐतिहासिक मान ता मतवाद दउनांती को ना किनु विभिन्न ऐतिहासिक मानकर विभिन्न मत रही आमे कहिबा जे केवल अशोक कलिंग वार जो होइतिला अशोक एथि पय कलिंग वार करितिले तो विभिन्न प्रकार ऐतिहासिक मानकर भिन्न भिन्न मध्य मत आमे पढुचे ना पढुने किंतु अनेक ऐतिहासिक मान अछंती समाने जो फैक्ट्स बा एविडेंसेस रहिछि जहाँ हमर इंस्क्रिप्शन रहिछि ताको आमे एग्जामिन करी ताको आमे इंटरप्रेट करी ऐतिहासिक मान मध्य समाने लेखुचंती इतिहास समटाइम्स रिपीट्स होछि से पॉइंट उडा समटाइम्स ताको पुणी एलाबोरेट होछि पुणी एग्जामिन होछि इंस्क्रिप्शन एविडेंसेस फैक्ट्स तापरे नुआ नुआ जिनस तथ्य आसुछि तेणु nobody can say 100% that history repeats itself in all the times. Could understand, my dear students? So in this way there are other historians who agree that history never repeats itself. they point out that history means a record of importance of events. Jodi ke ote pacharibo, what is history? History means a record of importance events and human deeds. Please write down the very important point. History means a record of important events and human deeds. So the every event history is unique and it has no uniformity. Understood? If we accept the theory of repetition of history, it means that there is no advancement in society. ବୁଝିପାରିଲ? ଯଦି ଆମେ ସେଇ ଜିନିଷକୁ ବାରମ୍ବାର ଆମେ ରିପିଟ୍ କରିବା, କିଏ ଯୋଉ ଐତିହାସିକ ମାନେ ଲେଖିଲେ ତାକୁ ପୁଣି ଆମେ ମୁଁ ଗୋଟେ ଜଣେ ଐତିହାସିକ ହେବି, ମୁଁ ସିଏ ଯାହା ଲେଖିଲେ ବା ଆମର ଯେକୌଣସି ଐତିହାସିକ ମାନେ ସପୋଜ ଆମର କିଏ କେସି ପାଣିଗ୍ରାହୀ ଯାହା ଲେଖିଲେ ମୁଁ ତାକୁ ପଢିଲି, କେସି ପାଣିଗ୍ରାହୀଙ୍କର ଜିନିଷଟାକୁ ମୁଁ ଲେଖିଲି ବା ପିକେ ମିଶ୍ର ଯାହା ଲେଖିକି ଯାଇଛନ୍ତି ତାଙ୍କ ଜିନିଷଟାକୁ ପଢିଲି ପୁଣି ସେ ବିଷୟରେ ଲେଖିଲି। ତାମାନେ ନୂଆ ଜିନିଷଟା ଆମେ କଣଟା ଜାଣିପାରିଲୁ? ଯୋଉ ଜିନିଷଟା ସିଏ ରିସର୍ଚ୍ଚ କଲେ ସିଏ ଲେଖିଲେ, ତୁମେ ତାଙ୍କ ଜିନିଷଟାକୁ ଲେଖିକି ତମେ ତାକୁ କପି କଲ, ସେଇ ଜିନିଷଟାକୁ ତମେ ଲେଖିଲ। ତାମାନେ କଣ ହଉଛି?
ଏଇଠି ମୁଁ ଗୋଟେ କଥା କହିବାକୁ ଚାହୁଁଛି ସାର୍, ଆପଣ ଯୋଉଟା କହିଲେ ଧନ୍ୟ ସାର୍ କେସି ପାଣିଗ୍ରାହୀ ଯାହା ଲେଖିଲେ ଆପଣ ସେ ସାର୍ ଆପଣ କେସି ପାଣିଗ୍ରାହୀ ଲେଖିଲେ ସେଇଟା ତାହେଲେ କପି ହବ କେମିତି?
କପି ଆପଣ ବାସ୍ ଭେରି ଭେରି ତମେ ଯଦି ମନେକର କେସି ପାଣିଗ୍ରାହୀଙ୍କର ମନେକର ଆମେ ଇତିହାସ ଆମେ ଲେଖିଲେ ପଢିଲେ ଆମର ଯଦି ନିଜର ଓପିନିୟନ ସାର୍ ଯାହା ଲେଖିକି ଯାଇଛନ୍ତି, ଆମେ ଯଦି ସେଇ ଫ୍ୟାକ୍ଟ ଏଭିଡେନ୍ସ ଆମେ ପଢୁଛେ, ପଢିକିରି ଆମେ ଯଦି ସେଇଟାକୁ ଯୋଉଟାକି ଆମେ ଯାଉଛେ ବିଭିନ୍ନ ପ୍ରକାର ଏରିଆକୁ ଯାଉଛେ, ତାକୁ ଖନନ କରୁଛେ, ଗୌତମ ବୁଦ୍ଧଙ୍କ ବିଷୟରେ ହଉ, ଜୈନଜିମ୍ ହଉ, ନୂଆ ଜିନିଷ ସବୁ ବାହାରୁଛି ନା ନାହିଁ କୁହ?
ଆଜ୍ଞା ସାର୍।
ନୂଆ ଏଭିଡେନ୍ସ ବାହାରୁଛି ନା ନାହିଁ? ଆମେ ଯଦି ଗ୍ରାସ ରୁଟ୍ ରେ ଆଉ ଟିକେ ରିସର୍ଚ୍ଚ କରିବା, ସାର୍ କି ସେମାନେ ଯାହା ରିସର୍ଚ୍ଚ କରି ଯାଇଛନ୍ତି ଆମେ ତାକୁ ଅନୁକରଣ କରୁଛେ ନା ନାହିଁ? we are imitating. ଯଦି ଆମେ ତାଙ୍କ ରିସର୍ଚ୍ଚ ସହିତ ଆମେ ଯଦି ଆଉ ଟିକେ ଅଧିକ ରିସର୍ଚ୍ଚ ୱାର୍କ କରିକିରି ସେ ବିଷୟରେ ଆମେ ନୂଆ ଜିନିଷକୁ ଇଣ୍ଟରପ୍ରିଟ କରିବା, ନୂଆ ଜିନିଷକୁ ଆମେ ଲେଖିବା, ତାହେଲେ ସମାଜର ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟ ହବ ବୋଲି ଅନେକ ଐତିହାସିକ ମାନେ କହୁଛନ୍ତି। The historians are saying we have to give the new system, new things to the society. It does not mean only we follow the old historians or the historians. They have already mentioned what they have mentioned in their books or in the journals or the books or magazines, what it meant. We are also following the secondary data. Understood my point? We are always following the secondary data, but we are not following the primary data. The historians should follow the primary data, the evidences and facts, okay, in different places, in different times. Then you can elaborate, then you can give it in a new dimension, in a different ways, according to the historians. ଆମେ କହୁଛେ ସାର୍ ଯାହା ଲେଖିଛନ୍ତି ଠିକ ଅଛି ଆମେ ପଢୁଛେ, କିନ୍ତୁ ଆମେ ଅଧିକ କେମିତି ଐତିହାସିକ ମାନେ ଜାଣିବେ ତା ଉପରେ ମଧ୍ୟ ସେ ରିସର୍ଚ୍ଚ ମଧ୍ୟ ଚାଲିଛି ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ। ବୁଝିହେଲା? ତେଣୁ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଗୋଟେ ପ୍ରେଜେଣ୍ଟ ଗୋଟେ ଏକ୍ସାମ୍ପଲ ଦଉଛି ତମମାନଙ୍କୁ, ଯେତେବେଳେ ଓଡିଶା ହିଷ୍ଟ୍ରି କଂଗ୍ରେସର ପ୍ରେଜେଣ୍ଟେସନ ଚାଲିଥାଏ, ଜଣେ ଯୋଉ ପ୍ରିନ୍ସଲି ଷ୍ଟେଟ ଉପରେ ଯୋଉଟା ଆମର ହଉଛି ଗୁଜରାତ, ଯୋଉଟା କଣ କୁହାଯାଏ, ଏଇଟା ଯୋଉ ଆମର ରିଭଲ୍ୟୁସନ ଯୋଉଟା ଆମର କଣ ହେଇଥିଲା ନା ଗଜରାତ ଆନ୍ଦୋଳନ ଗୁଡିକ ଯୋଉଟା ହେଇଥିଲା, ତାଙ୍କ ବିଷୟରେ ଜଣେ ପ୍ରଫେସର ପ୍ରେଜେଣ୍ଟେସନ ଦେବ। ହଁ ଶୁଭୁଛି? ଶୁଭୁଛି?
ଆଜ୍ଞା ସାର୍।
ପ୍ରଜାମଣ୍ଡଳ ମୁଭମେଣ୍ଟ ଯେତେବେଳେ ପ୍ରେଜେଣ୍ଟେସନ ସେ ଦେଲେ, ସେଥିରେ ଜଣେ ଏକ୍ସପର୍ଟ ବସିଥିଲେ, ସେଠି ସେ ଆସିଥିଲେ ନ୍ୟାସନାଲ ଡିଫେନ୍ସ ଏକାଡେମୀରୁ ଆଉ ଜଣେ ପ୍ରଫେସର ଏବଂ ଜେଏନୟୁରୁ ମଧ୍ୟ ଆସିଥିଲେ। ସେ କହିଲେ ଯୋଉଟା ବହିରେ ଲେଖା ଯାଇଛି, ଯୋଉଟା ଅଲରେଡି ତା ଉପରେ କାମ ହେଇଯାଇଛି, ତା ଉପରେ ତମେ ପ୍ରେଜେଣ୍ଟେସନ ଦେଇପାରିବ ନାହିଁ। ବୁଝିପାରିଲ? ଏବଂ ସେ ଯୋଉ ପ୍ରେଜେଣ୍ଟେସନ ଯୋଉ ପେପରଟା, ଯୋଉ ରିସର୍ଚ୍ଚ ପେପରଟା, ସେ ସାଙ୍ଗେ ସାଙ୍ଗେ ତାକୁ ଅବଜେକ୍ସନ କଲେ, କହିଲେ ନା ୟୁ କ୍ୟାନ୍ ଗିଭ୍ ପ୍ରେଜେଣ୍ଟେସନ। ଯାହା ବହିରେ ଲେଖା ହେଇଛି, ଯାହା ଐତିହାସିକ ମାନେ ଲେଖିଛନ୍ତି ତା ଉପରେ ତମେ ସେଇ ଜିନିଷଟାକୁ ଲେଖିକିରି ତମେ ପ୍ରେଜେଣ୍ଟେସନ ଦଉଛ, ସେଇଟା ହେଇପାରିବ ନାହିଁ। ତମେ ନୂଆ ଜିନିଷ କଣ ଜାଣିଛ ସେ ବିଷୟରେ ତମେ ପ୍ରେଜେଣ୍ଟେସନ ଦିଅ। ବୁଝିପାରିଲ ଡିୟର ଷ୍ଟୁଡେଣ୍ଟସ୍? ସେଇଠି ସେ ରିପିଟ କଲେ ଯେ ନା, ଯାହା ରିସର୍ଚ୍ଚ ହେଇଛି ତା ଉପରେ ତମେ ପ୍ରେଜେଣ୍ଟେସନ ଦେଇପାରିବନି, ନୂଆ ଜିନିଷ କଣ ତମେ ରିସର୍ଚ୍ଚ କରୁଛ କୁହ। What is your new ideas about the Prajamandal movement? Have you done the prolonged research Have you extracted some important knowledges? Have you collected other evidence of the facts about the Pradhamandal movement? About the importance of the Pradhamandal movement? What the historians have written? We're always imitating on that particular things. But the history, for the researchers, as an academician, as a student of history, yes, I may follow the many historians' writings for my scoring, for my examination purpose. Understood my point? But for the research purpose, research ପାଇଁ ଆମକୁ ହେଲେ ଆମକୁ ନୂଆ ନୂଆ ଜିନିଷକୁ ଲୋକଲୋଚନକୁ ଆଣିବାକୁ ପଡ଼ିବ ଏବଂ ସମାଜର ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟ ହୋଇପାରିବ। ଐତିହାସିକ ମାନେ ମତ ଦିଅନ୍ତି, ମୁଁ କହୁନି, I'm not telling what the historians are saying. ବୁଝିପାରିଲେ students? What the historians are saying, what the experts are saying. Give us the new ideas, new things for development of the society. That is the most important part. And the controversy does not seem to be discussed again. The basic nature of history, constant change. Se kହୁଛନ୍ତି, but I would a sentence କହିଲେ, the basic nature of history is the constant change. Dear students, please listen carefully. The historical events are not uniform, as the historians suggest. Though some events may have uniformity, but it cannot be said that history repeats itself in this regard. I would point like Mr. in this regard, Trevelyan, Trevelyan, Trevelyan कौन कहले?
सर भॉइस
According to the great historian.
सर आउट करके रिपीट करूँ.
The great historian, are you audible? The great historian, Trevelyan, Trevelyan, Trevelyan. से कौन कहले? History repeats itself. Please write down. It's a very important question. According to Trevelyan, से कौन कहले? History repeats itself, and also that history never repeats itself fully. Are you writing? History repeats itself, and also that history never repeats itself fully. History repeats itself, and also that history never repeats itself fully. बुझिपारे से कौन कहले? According to Trevelyan कहले history repeats itself, and also that history never repeats itself fully. समझते लगिलो? In this way, we can say that history does not always repeat itself, but it repeats only that is partial due to similar circumstances. ଯଦି similar circumstance ଥିବ, ଯୋଉ ଜିନିଷଟା ଚେଞ୍ଜ ହବ ନାହିଁ, ଯଦି ଆମେ କହିବା ଭାରତ କେବେ ସ୍ୱାଧୀନତା ଲାଭ କରିଥିଲା, ଏଟା କଣ କେହି ଚେଞ୍ଜ କରିପାରିବେ? Is it possible to change the date and events? Never. ଯୋଉ ଡେଟଟା ରହିଲା, ଯୋଉଟା circumstantial evidence ଅଛି, proof ଅଛି, fact ଅଛି, nobody can change. Understood my point? So in this way, that history does not always repeat itself, but it repeats only partially due to the similar circumstances. Okay? Then in my previous class, I was also discussing that according to the great historian Yechkar, what is the opinion of the history? Then another important thing is, very important point, value judgment in history. At present, there arises a controversy that whether the value judgment has importance in history or not. Value judgment kiye koile, ko historian koile value judgment is very much important in history. Who are given the ideas? Lord Acton, please write down. Please write. Lord Acton emphasizes that value judgment is not only desirable, but also it is essential in history. Kiye koile? Eta padibo question jodi kon lekhibo? Who said? Value judgment is not only desirable, but also it is essential in history. Who said? Lord Acton. Yeah. Lord Acton says, emphasize that the value judgment is not only desirable, but also it is essential in history. Okay? Most important definition. So a historian is always is required to view the historical facts objectively and evaluate and assess them and then express his own ideas. So on the contrary, Mr. Bori kon kahitile ki kahi paribo? Mr. Bori, a great historian. Who said?
History, science, less,
science,
No less.
number.
Okay, yes. पुणी एठी बरी कौन कहले? बरींकर ओपिनियन को नेचर ऊपर हिस्टोरिकल नेचर ऊपर से कौन कहले? बरी feels that the historian should satisfy himself with the reconstruction of the past events. से कौन कहले? बरी again feels से निजे अनुताप कले, निजे अनुभव कले जे historian should satisfy himself with the reconstruction of the past events. Please write down. Please, if you want to write, you may write or listen. So, Bari feels that a historian should satisfy himself with the reconstruction of the past events, and he should only present the facts are there, but it is not required to come out with its own interpretation. Subhaji.
No sir, your voice is cracking sir.
भाई सुबनी तमरो नेटवर्किंग ठीक अछि
सर आपनकर कथा केतेरा सुभुची केतेरा भी सुभुनी एमती होउची सर माने वॉइस आपनकर मझरे मझरे कट भी होउची
पिला अलगा पिला माने को ओपिनियन दियो का को
सर
सुबनी
आपन वॉइस टा क्लियरली आसुची किंतु तांकर
सर आपनकर वॉइस टा क्लियरली आसुची तांकर प्रॉब्लम थियो
आपनकर वॉइस टा क्लियरली आसुची किंतु नेटवर्क प्रॉब्लम पाई मते सुना
तांकर नेटवर्क प्रॉब्लम थियो
क्लियर अछि अच्छा थैंक यू
क्लियर अछि
मु वर्तमान जो डिस्कशन करछि मन रखो जा पॉइंट आउट करथो एवं तमे देखिबो एरा अछि नेचर ऑफ हिस्ट्री ऊपर मु डिस्कशन करछि तापन स्कोप को जीबी बुझेला नेचर ऊपर मु डिस्कशन करछि तमे नेचर ऑफ हिस्ट्री होछि जे जोटा डिस्कशन हम करूछि तार इंटरप्रिटेशन ऊपर हिस्टोरिकल इंटरप्रिटेशन ऊपर डिस्कशन होछि से बोरिंग कर बरी कहले जो डेफिनेशन ता देले से आउटे डेफिनेशन मते से कहउछंती जोटा कि एमती भी क्वेश्चन पळे आसीबो माने कर पळे आछो त जानि नथिबो त जानथिबो बरी कहले नो लेस साइंस कोन हिस्ट्री जे साइंस नो लेस नो मोर जोटा कहले माने कर आउटे डेफिनेशन पळे आसीबो तमे कोन करिवो त जानि नथिबो से जिंस को त नेचर ऑफ हिस्ट्री जदी डिटेल ता में डिस्कशन करिथिबा तबे किए कोन कहले फटाफट तमे आंसर करि पारिबो
एबे जो कथा आउथरे के कोन तो जो जबे परी
बरी मते आउटे डेफिनेशन से कहिसंती आउटे हिस्टोरिकल नेचर ऊपर से कहिसंती जे बरी फील्स दैट ए हिस्टोरियन should satisfy himself with the reconstruction of the past events. Understood? He should only present the facts as these are, but is not required to come out of his own interpretation. This theory is not only accepted today, but it is considered that a historian should interpret the events and draw a conclusion from them. Tamane, the interpretation of history upare emphasis dauchandi ke na Mr. Bori. Mr. Bori has given importance and emphasis on the historian should interpret the events and draw a conclusion from them, and it does not do this, history will not be an interesting subject. जदि आमे ताको इंटरप्रेट न करिबा मु तुमको हिस्ट्री पढौची जदि तुमको इंटरेस्टिंग न लागिबो फैक्ट एविडेंस ऊपर हम डिस्कशन करछे तमे डेफिनेटली विल डिससैटिस्फाई जन हिस्टोरियन केमति सैटिस्फाई हबो जेते नुवा नुवा जिंस को इंटरप्रेट करिवो नुवा नुवा जिंस को जेते लोकलोचन को आनिवो सेतले आमे माने इंटरेस्टिंग नबा जदि कलिंग वार ऊपर आमे रिसर्च करिबा बा जे कोनसी इतिहास पर रिसर्च कला पर नुवा नुवा जिंस जदि आखि बा लोकलोचन को आनिबा समाज रे डेफिनेटली इट विल टेक इंटरेस्ट यू विल टेक इंटरेस्ट टू स्टडी हिस्ट्री तो हिस्ट्री टाक इंटरेस्टिंग करिया को हेला हमको कोन करिया पड़िबो ना इंटरप्रेट करिया पड़िबो सो इंटरप्रेट करले अल्टीमेटली हमको इंटरेस्टिंग सब्जेक्ट बोली लागे बोली की ओपिनियन देले मिस्टर बॉरी सो इट इज वेरी मच इंपोर्टेंट इट इज आल्सो ट्रू दैट excess interpretation will deprive the history of its basic character कोन क्वेश्चन excess interpret भी करिया उचित न excess interpretation is most important part but the excess interpretation will deprive the history of its basic character so far the matter is concerned in a simple way in a simple manner we can elaborate that historical events should be interpreted. So in this regard, he feels the historian should satisfy himself with the reconstruction of the past events in this regard. The contemporary nature of history. Thucydides कौन विश्वास कले? Thucydides, तुम मान को this scientific history हम कहुचे. Thucydides, according to some scholars, historical facts correlated to one another. Then Thucydides मतरे कौन नेचर से कहले व्हाट इज द ओपिनियन ऑफ थुसिडाइडिस अबाउट द नेचर ऑफ हिस्ट्री थुसिडाइडिस बिलीव्स दैट all the historical facts have a relation with them in some rational way and permanent manner which in effect means that entire march of history is one continuous whole से कौन कहले Thucydides कहउचंती he believes से विश्वास करंती थे all the historical facts have a relation with them in some rational way and permanent manner हमें सब बेले विश्वास करते in rational way सब बेले हमें सब परमानेंट मैनर ऊपर हमें डिस्कस हमें विश्वास करते इतिहास को एवं जहाँ की कौन करिवो ना इफेक्ट्स means the entire march of the history one continuous whole तामाने गोटे जिंस ऊपर हमें आधारित बोली बा continuous whole by it is a most important facts have relation with them in some rational way and permanent manner हमें सब दिन पाई हमें ताको ग्रहण करिथाउ but which is the effect means that the entire march of history is one continuous whole हमें सही जिंसटा को अनुकरण करथाउ continuously एवं according to Collingwood कौन कहले Collingwood is the view that historians while writing past are not free from compulsion of their age so their writings are largely influenced by modern ideas आधुनिक जुगरे आधुनिक जो आइडिया ऊपर जिसे कहउचंती their writings past are related to the one another and in this way that their writings are largely influenced by modern ideas the present and the past are related to the one another and crochet तामाने present और past विषय रे interlink करके जदि हम इतिहास लेके past और present what is the past and how to focus in the present that is the most important objective of Collingwood and Collingwood rightly pointed out that historians while writing past are not free from compulsion of their age. So their writings are largely influenced by modern ideas. In this way, present and past are related to one another. तामाने अतीत एवं वर्तमान परस्पर भितर अनुपूरक तेणु उभयଙ୍କ ଭିତରେ सामंजस्य रखिबा उभयଙ୍କ ଭିତରେ कोरिलेटेड रछि तापर तुम इतिहास लिखि परिबो एवं another important historian Crochet believes that all history is one and supreme spirit which is invisible but has our different aspects. Please write down the students. According to Crochet. Crochet कौन कहले? Crochet कौन विश्वास कले? Believe करछन देटे. Collingwood कहले past और present को related करी हम इतिहास लोग जो writing is we believe both past and present. But Crochet कहछन beliefs करछन करो. Now all history is one supreme spirit which is indivisible but has our different aspect. से कौन कहले? Crochet कौन कहले? Crochet believe different aspects. Number 1, the art. Number 2, the ethics. Number 3, the logic. And number 4, economics. बुझेला?
Repeat again.
Crochet believes. Now, Crochet believes 4 different aspects in history. 4 different aspects. Crochet believes 4 different aspects, namely arts, A-R-T-S, arts, number 1, second ethics, third is logic, and fourth is economics. 4 important aspects in all history, according to Crochet. And all history is one supreme spirit. And it has 4 important or different aspects. Arts, ethics, logic, economics. So the basic unit of spirit is emerged by these aspects of the spirit is the main spring of all historical forces. So in this way, that if we discuss about the uniformity of the messages of Buddha, Mahavira, Jesus Christ, Gandhiji, this fact supports the contemporary nature of history. ता कौन कहा जाए? The contemporary nature of history, according to the opinion of the message of Gautam Buddha, Mahavira, Jesus Christ, Swami Vivekananda, Mahatma Gandhi. Okay, these facts supports the contemporary nature of history. Okay, and in this regard, again I am going to discuss about the variation in history. History varies not only according to the time but also from the historian to historian. ऐतिहासिक मानकर मत भिन्न भिन्न मत रहता है. It is quite clear that nature of history is largely influenced by the philosophy, and the history is written during the colonial rule varies from that written by the historians after the freedom. Colonial time रे कौन इतिहास लिखा हितला एवं freedom परे कौन इतिहास लिखला. different opinions. The different historians have different opinion in this regard. It is because of the philosophy that surroundings. A contemporary historian presents historical events from his viewpoint, and a patriot with point in different look of history. So the social, economics, religious factors also affect the historical outlook. So in this way, these are the important points which I have already discussed. The nature of history, I'm again repeating some important information, important things. Nature जदि पढ़िबा पले अपन टिके सुनो perfectly. जे नेचर जदि पढ़िबा को पॉइंट भेजी एलाबोरेट हम करा जीवो. फर्स्ट पॉइंट लेख. फर्स्ट पॉइंट होची अनेक पॉइंट रा हम लिखिची. आ अदर पॉइंट्स रा कहूची नेचर ऑफ हिस्ट्री रे a study of the present in the light of the past. Most important point. The nature of history means a study of the present in the light of the past. Then another important point, history is the study of man. History is the study of man. Then history is concerned with the man in time. Are you audible? The nature of history, the most important points I'm discussing. History is concerned with man in time. Then history is concerned with man in space. Jodi न बुझी पारियो मते पचारिबो. You may ask question. I am also discussing various points of nature of history. History is concerned with the man in space. Objective record of happenings. Then history is a dialogue between the events of the past and progressively emerging future tense. Then history is a dialogue between the events of the past and progressively emerging future ends. History is a dialogue between the events of the past and progressively emerging future ends. History is not only narration but also analysis. What is narration? Narration ala commenting. Narration means commenting or kathana or katha kathita, jota kuha narration. So history is not only narration but also analysis. Analysis means what? Very important thing. History is a continuity and coherence. What is coherence? The quality of a being logical, consistent, coherent. History is a continuity and coherent. And history implies the comprehensiveness. Comprehensiveness. But the most important thing.
Continuity. तापट्टा कौन बोले?
History is continuity and coherence. 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 Next. History deals with relevant facts. History deals with relevant facts. Then history deals with comprehensiveness. Comprehensiveness बुझिपाछ ना बुझाइदेवी
सर बुझे दियो तो
okay what is okay very nice so what is comprehensiveness? History deals with comprehensiveness. It means according to modern concepts history is not confined to one period or country or nation. It deals with all aspects of human life, political, social, economic, religious, literary, aesthetic and physical, giving a clear sense of the world unity and world citizen. बुझिपारलो comprehensive अर्थ माने विशालकाय. इतिहास रे पढ़िबा द्वारा हमें कोन जाउचे ना राजनीति, सामाजिक, अर्थनीति, धार्मिक चिंताधारा, साहित्यिक एवं शारीरिक बा फिजिकल अनेक जिनस को हमें जानि पारि थाउ. जदि हमें इतिहास को comprehensiveness को नेचर को जदि हम नबा, then we can understand the several aspects of human life related to political, social, economic, religious, literary. That's why it is called comprehensive in nature. बुझिपालो what is comprehensive in nature? History. ना बुझिपालो नि के? बुझेला तो हम आले मा बुझी पुनी.
नहीं सर बुझेला ना तो ठीक है.
comprehensive कहला में कहबा comprehensive होजी विशाल का जोटा कि कहा जाए जे इतिहास को हम comprehensive nature एट पई कहबा जे इतिहास पढ़िबा द्वारा इतिहास गोटे देश रे बा गोटे जगह रे कन्फाइन नहीं रही न थाए. इतिहास पढ़िबा द्वारा हम कोन पढु ना मनुष्य जातिर राजनीति, सामाजिक, अर्थनीति, धार्मिक चिंताधारा, साहित्यिक एवं शारीरिक एवं विभिन्न प्रकार तथ्य उपर पर्यवेसित होता इतिहास द्वारा कि आम इतिहास केवल गोटे जगार कन्फाइन हुए नहीं ता गोटे देश भीतर कन्फाइन हुए ता सारा वर्ल्ड रे मध्य बेस करता है. सारा वर्ल्ड कहला हमको फॉर एग्जांपल आम इजिप्ट कथा पढ़ी. इजिप्ट सिविलाइजेशन तार सोशल लाइफ कौन थिला, तार इकोनॉमिक लाइफ कौन थिला. जदि आम पढ़िबा ग्रीक सिविलाइजेशन तार सोशल लाइफ कौन थिला, तार इकोनॉमिक लाइफ कौन थिला. तेणु इतिहास को आगला द हिस्ट्री डील्स विथ कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव इन नेचर. बुझिपालो थर
ଆଜ୍ଞା ସାର୍
Okay.
ବୁଝିଗଲା ସାର୍
Next part is
ସାର୍
Yes.
ଏଇଟା ଯୋଉ ଇତିହାସର ପରିସରଟା ବ୍ୟାପକ ବୋଲି କୁହାଯାଏ ନା ସେଥିପାଇଁ
ବ୍ୟାପକ ଯୋଉଟା କମ୍ପ୍ରେହେନ୍ସିଭନେସ୍ ଯୋଉଟା କୁହାଯାଉଛି ବ୍ୟାପକ ମାନେ ସ୍କୋପ ଯୋଉ ଆମେ କହୁଛେ ସ୍କୋପ ଅଫ ହିଷ୍ଟ୍ରି ଯେତେବେଳେ ପଢିବା ବ୍ୟାପକ ଉପରେ ତାପରେ ଆମେ ପଏଣ୍ଟ କୁ ମୁଁ ଆଣିବି ଏଇଟା ହଉଛି ନେଚର ଇନ ହିଷ୍ଟ୍ରି ଉପରେ ଆମେ ଯାଉଛେ ଇତିହାସ କେବଳ ଗୋଟିଏ ଦେଶ ଗୋଟିଏ ଜାଗାରେ ସୀମିତ ହୋଇ ରୁହେ ଇତିହାସ ତା ସମଗ୍ର ପୃଥିବୀ ପୃଷ୍ଠରେ ସାମାଜିକ ରାଜନୈତିକ ଧାର୍ମିକ ଚିନ୍ତାଧାରା ଉପରେ ପର୍ଯ୍ୟବେସିତ ହୋଇଥାଏ ଏବଂ ତା ବିଷୟରେ ଆମେ ଜାଣିବା ପାଇଁ ଚାହୁଁ ତେଣୁ ଦ୍ୟାଟ୍ ଇଜ କଲ୍ଡ କମ୍ପ୍ରେହେନ୍ସିଭ ଇନ୍ ନେଚର ତାପରେ ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ସେଣ୍ଟେନ୍ସ ହଉଛି ଗୋଟେ ହଉଛି ମୁଁ ତମକୁ କହିଥିବି ବୋଧେ ରେଲିଭାଣ୍ଟ ହଉଛି ରେଲିଭାଣ୍ଟ appropriate relevant facts आवश्यक होता इतिहास द्वारा included relevant with understanding of the present life ओके ଆଉ କଣ ବୁଝି ପାରିଲନି ନେଚର ସରିଗଲା ନେଚର କମ୍ପ୍ଲିଟେଡ ସ୍କୋପ
ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ଡାଉଟ ଥିଲା ହ୍ୟାଲୋ
ସ୍କୋପ ଟା ହଁ
ହ୍ୟାଲୋ ସାର୍ କମ୍ପ୍ରେହେନ୍ସିଭ
ହଁ।
ନେଚରଟା ସାର୍ ଆଉଥରେ ଟିକେ ବୁଝାନ୍ତୁ ସାର୍ ମୁଁ ଏଇଟା ଟିକେ ବୁଝିପାରୁନି କାହିଁକି ଟିକେ ସାର୍ ଆଉଥରେ ଟିକେ ବୁଝାନ୍ତୁ
ଆଚ୍ଛା ହଉ ତମ ଭିତରୁ କିଏ କମ୍ପ୍ରେହେନ୍ସିଭ ନେଚର ଟା ବୁଝେଇ ପାରିବ ଏନିବଡି ମତେ ଆମକୁ ବହୁତ ଖୁସି ଲାଗେ ପରସ୍ପର ଭିତରେ ଡିସ୍କସନ ହବା ଦରକାର କିଏ ବୁଝେଇ ପାରିବ କମ୍ପ୍ରେହେନ୍ସିଭନେସ୍
Sir, actually, comprehensiveness means
ହଁ କୁହ
ପରିସର ବ୍ୟାପକ extended ଏମିତି ନାହିଁ ଗୋଟେ ଲୋକାଲିଟିରେ ଖାଲି ହିଷ୍ଟ୍ରିଟା ଅଛି ଆଉ କୋଉଠି ନାହିଁ ମାନେ ଅଲ୍ ୱାର୍ଲଡ ରେ ସ୍ପ୍ରେଡ ହେଇକି ଅଛି ସବୁ ଜିନିଷର ଗୋଟେ ନା ଗୋଟେ ହିଷ୍ଟ୍ରି ଥାଏ ସେଇଟା ଗୋଟେ ନେଚର ବେସ୍ ରେ ଯାଉଛି କି ଯେହେତୁ ଆମର ଟୋଟାଲ ହେଲା ସବୁଥିର ହିଷ୍ଟ୍ରି ଗୋଟେ ଥାଏ ମାନେ ସବୁ ଯେକୌଣସି ଗୋଟେ ଇଭେଣ୍ଟ ହଉ ଯେକୌଣସି ଯାହା ବି ଆଜି ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ହେଇଛି ତାର କିଛି ନା କିଛି ହିଷ୍ଟ୍ରି ରହିଥିବ ତ ତାର ସ୍ପ୍ରେଡ ମାନେ
କୁହ ଠିକ ଅଛି
ମାନେ ଆମେ ଯେତେ ଆଗକୁ ବଢୁଛେ ଆମର ସେତେ ହିଷ୍ଟ୍ରି ହେଇ ଚାଲିଛି ମାନେ ଆମର ପର୍ସ ଇଭେଣ୍ଟ ଗୁଡାକ ସବୁ ଗୁଡାକ ହେଉଛି ଆମର ହିଷ୍ଟ୍ରି ଗୋଟେ ଗୋଟେ ତ ସେଇଟା ହିଁ ମାନେ ସେଇଟା ହିଁ କୁହାହଉଛି କି ମାନେ ଭାଷ୍ଟ ବୋଲି ତ ସେଇଟା ମାନେ ମୁଁ ଯେତିକି ବୁଝୁଛି ସେଇଟା ମତେ
ଭାଷ୍ଟ ମାନେ ସୋସିଆଲ ପଲିଟିକାଲ ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ ଦେଶ ଭିତରେ ମାନେ କନଫାଇନ ଆମେ କରିପାରିବା ଇତିହାସଟା କଣ ଗୋଟେ ଦେଶ ବିଷୟରେ ଖାଲି ଲେଖିବା ଆଉ କାହା ବିଷୟରେ ଲେଖିବାନି ଆଉ କୋଉ ଦେଶ ବିଷୟରେ ଗୋଟେ ୱିଦିନ ଦ କଣ୍ଟ୍ରି ଭିତରେ କନଫାଇନ ରହିନଥାଏ ଇତିହାସ ହଉଛି ଗୋଟେ ବ୍ୟାପକ ଜିନିଷ ଯୋଉଟା କି ତେଣୁ ପାଇଁ ଇତିହାସକୁ କୁହାଗଲା ହିଷ୍ଟ୍ରି ଦ ଷ୍ଟଡି ଅଫ ମ୍ୟାନ କଣ କୁହାଗଲା ହିଷ୍ଟ୍ରି ଦ ଷ୍ଟଡି ଅଫ ମ୍ୟାନ ତେଣୁ ଇତିହାସକୁ କୁହାଗଲା ହିଷ୍ଟ୍ରିକୁ by selecting innumerable biographies please write down the point history କଣ କହିଲା by selecting innumerable biography କଣ what is innumerable ହେଲା uncountable ଯାହା ଗଣି ହୁଏନି uncountable ଅନେକ ମାନେ ଯୋଉ ବାୟୋଗ୍ରାଫି ତ କଣ on account of someone's life written by someone else ମାନେ ଏତେ ଲେଖା ହେଇଛି ତା ଆମେ ଇତିହାସ ଆମେ ଗଣି ପାରିବାନି ବାସ୍ ତେଣୁ ତାକୁ କୁହାଗଲା innumerable biographies ହଉଛି ଆମେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଅନେକ ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କର ଐତିହାସିକ ଆମେ ଇତିହାସ ଲେଖୁ ଆମେ କାଉଣ୍ଟିଂ କରିପାରିବାନି କେତେ ଜଣ କେତେ ବ୍ୟକ୍ତି କେତେ ରୁଲର କାହାର କଣ କଣ୍ଟ୍ରିବ୍ୟୁସନ ଥିଲା ତା ବ୍ୟାପକ ସେ ଜିନିଷକୁ କନଫାଇନ କରି ଏକ୍ସପ୍ଲେନ କରିବା ବହୁତ ଡିଫିକଲ୍ଟ ତେଣୁ ପାଇଁ କୁହାଗଲା ହିଷ୍ଟ୍ରି ଦ ଷ୍ଟଡି ଅଫ ମ୍ୟାନକାଇଣ୍ଡ history the study of man and history deals with innumerable biographies बुझेला innumerable biographies and presenting their lives in the appropriate social context and the ideas in the human context and understand the sweep of events it traces the fascinating story of how man has developed through the ages how the man has studied to use control his environment and the present institutions grown out of the past the present institutions have grown out of the past so in this way history deals with innumerable biography it's a very important nature of history ବୁଝିଲା ଆଉ କଣ ଅଛି ପଚାରି ପାର କ୍ୱେଶ୍ଚନ ତାପରେ ସ୍କୋପ ଟାକୁ ଯିବା Anybody, any question? Can I discuss the scope of history?
Yes, sir.
Comprehensive अर्थ लिखि दियो. Comprehensive होची detail elaborate. Comprehensive अर्थ कोन? Detail elaborate. तेनु पई आमे गोटिए देश बा गोटिए जगह ऊपर कन्फाइन करबानी आमे डिटेल एलाबोरेट करबा ओ सोशल पॉलिटिकल लाइफ हो जे कोन सो समग्र पृथ्वी पृष्ठ रे विभिन्न प्रकार इतिहास संबंध रे ऐतिहासिक माने मत देइछंती तेनु सेट पई कहला हिस्ट्री डील्स विथ कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव इन नेचर कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव होची डिटेल एलाबोरेट टू एक्सप्लेन इन डिटेल विकास बाबू बुझ पाइलो तो तेनु
धन्यवाद
आउ सातवा सर नाउ केते टाइम दबा ना इति बंद कर दबा स्कोप टिके 5 मिनिट पड़े ना बंद कर दबा ना आउ गोटे क्लास
पढ़े दियम सर गोटे क्लास
सर पढ़ान तो
आउ गोटे क्लास नबा
आज्ञा
मो टिके 2 मिनिट खाली कहि दो ओनली 2 मिनिट स्कोप ऊपर तापर नेक्स्ट क्लास कंप्लीट कर दबा होला
सर हमरो स्कोप टा आर क्लास रे नवा सहित ता सहित मॉक टेस्ट नै जिवो मॉक टेस्ट क्वेश्चन टा
अच्छा ठीक है ओके थैंक यू in my previous in the next class we'll discuss the scope of history or the scope of history is very much vast and breadth and the extent of something from side to side and comprehensive in nature that is called the scope of history. We'll discuss in briefly and elaborately. Okay, scope means that is the history of literature, history of civilization, history of geography, history of art, history of culture. Okay, all those things will come under the scope of history. Dear students, we'll discuss about the regional history, about the national history, international repute, different types of historical things, technological, religious, artistic, international level. What is the importance of history? That is the most important of the scope of history. Okay? We'll discuss in my next class. Is it
सर आउट डाउट थिला सर जो ट्रायलियन गोटे सर आउट थिला ट्रायलियन जो सब कहितले जो
ट्रैवलिन कहि देले ट्रैवलिन
हां ट्रैवलिन सर
TRA हां
सर आउट टिके कोन तो से ये
हां ट्रैवलिन TREVLYEN ट्रैवलिन कहिले हिस्ट्री रिपीट्स इटसेल्फ लेखो फटाफट हिस्ट्री रिपीट्स इटसेल्फ History repeats itself and also that history never repeats itself fully and also that history never repeats itself fully. लिखला तो असला
रिपीट
that history never repeats itself fully. प्रथम कहले history repeats itself and also that history never repeats itself fully.
थैंक यू सर थैंक यू
Okay, thank you all the students.
सर
हाँ
सर ये जो हमरो नेचर एंड स्कोप अछि एंड द मीनिंग ऑफ हिस्ट्री तो हमें एटा पई को बुक प्रेफर करले हम पे बेटर होबो
मु कहितली विषय कली फॉलो करिवो ई श्रीधरन बुक फॉलो करिवो हैला तापर हमर आउ जने बोले डॉक्टर केएल खुराना कांसेप्ट एंड मेथड्स ऑफ हिस्टोरियोग्राफी
ओके सर
बुझ पालो
ओके
आ विषय कली लिखिछथि हिस्ट्री इट्स थियोरी एंड मेथड्स विषय कली तापर ए श्रीधरन लिखिछ ई श्रीधरन लिखिछथि ए टेक्स्ट बुक ऑफ हिस्टोरियोग्राफी ए बुक सिंपल मेथड सिंपल ले तमे आनी परबो डॉक्टर केएल खुराना किबा विषय कली ए दुटा बही फॉलो करो
ओके सर थैंक यू सर
हैला थैंक यू डियर स्टूडेंट्स
सर सर आउ गुड सर वैल्यू जजमेंट टा के कहबे आउतरे
हां वैल्यू जजमेंट के कहि देले
लॉर्ड एक्ट
यू मे राइट हां लॉर्ड एक्ट
थैंक यू
Lord Acton emphasizes that value judgment is not only desirable but it is also essential in history. बुझि पालो तो
थैंक यू
Lord Acton emphasizes that value judgment is not only desirable okay but also it is essential in history. हैला एला सब पढिबो क्वेश्चन very important points.
थैंक यू
Thank you dear students.
थैंक यू सर नाइस सेलिब्रेट थैंक यू सर
नमस्कार. Thank you sir. Thank you. Welcome.
थैंक यू सर